Hello, and welcome to the first part of my build a thing. So, I was going to do a build video on my previous build. I actually started the videos, I did quite a few of them. But unfortunately, I got to a certain point and realized none of what I was doing was working, tore it all down, built something completely different, and then remembered I was supposed to be making videos. So that build a house video did not happen. So this is a different build. So frequently with my builds, what'll happen is I will have an area and a sort of vague idea. I'll have an idea, but it doesn't like. Some people seem to like have an idea and it's like a fully composed something with like parameters already set that they can like mathematically sketch out and know exactly what things they need for it and get all of those ahead of time and then build it. I am not one of those people. I am the sort of person that goes, okay, I've got these random building materials, none of which match, and a whole bunch of these pretty trees and stuff. What can I make? So, what I frequently do is just build something dependent on where the pieces lead me. Um, and that's what I did here. And the thing is, I will build it, and then I will tear it all down and build it again. So these videos are going to be that. I'm going to tear this that I have built all down. I'm going to call this one Living on the Edge, because we will be. This is all obviously off over a whole lot of nothingness in Coldharbor. And I picked this because this is one of the few places I still have that has just open space to build rather than a house to decorate. So my idea was to just build like a little one-room cottage, but not quite cottage style. You know, just kind of going with what I have, which was a lot of miscellaneous things. And a couple things I could make. And then create these sort of views slash gardens off of the house. It's an idea I've done somewhat before, especially with my where am I? Who am I? What's my name? Especially with my Shalador Shrouded Realm, where I built a floating castle and then built like little gardens off. So I wanted to do something similar here, but I wanted to make one of them sort of an aquatic themed one. Eventually I want to get some fishies and some jellyfish and maybe some bubbles to stick in this one. And I had a thought. Where was I going with this? Ah, yes. So, idea, build the thing, build my little kitchen, build some gardening bits, and have it just kind of float in here. And it's not that I don't like what I've built. I actually do rather like what I've built. I think it's pretty. Some of the things really worked. Some little gardening areas really worked. I only died once building this. Can you believe it? Only once. And it was not even because I picked up the wrong thing and then plummeted to my death. I will probably do that in later videos when I'm rebuilding. It was because as I was building this ramp down here, I put a piece down and then went to carry my next piece down, and evidently the first one hadn't resolved totally, so I just fell through it. Fell down through the sky with my little piece. Wait, I'm dying. So, this is my first go. Part of the problem I have is that somehow these blocks are not flat. And it's because I have a bunch of these old, ancient elsewhere, what are they called? Elsewhere platforms, ancient square. I have a bunch of these, and the problem is the top side of them has a little raised bit, and that really limits your flooring. Like, you either have these little grooves in between each one, or you just have to use the smaller part of it. But I didn't want to do that. I wanted to have something a little bit bigger and flatter and not have to deal with that. Well, the problem then was that I couldn't get these to lay flat. So we're going to do some experiments to get that in order so that next time you see this build, which will probably be shaped entirely different, I will hopefully have flat floors and not floating carpets. But yeah, it's actually not unusual for me to build a place 2 or 3 times before I get happy with it. Part of the problem I have is that I don't have a very mathematical brain. I'm not very good at figuring out spaces. Sometimes I put entirely too wide of stairs in the middle of my house. So it can just be a little awkward looking when I'm done. But by having built it once, I've had a chance to really play with the ideas, figure out sort of what my themes are, how things are going to look, and then I can rebuild it and do a much better job. So that's part of my process. I don't recommend that process. It's very awkward. But it just happens to be what works for me. And, it works-ish. Bathroom there. I don't like how narrow this hall ended up. It ended up very narrow. I don't know how I managed to make it so narrow. I didn't mean to. I even squished this door shut a little bit. It was special. I got to building very late at night. I really like how this garden turned out. In particular, I think it is one of my favorite little bits. So I'm going to be really sad to tear this all down and start over. But I wanted to give you an idea of just how my process works. So this is your little intro to, this is going to be a little cottage out over nowhere, living on the edge. And I'm going to rebuild this. Oh, this game. I intended to have those in all of the little gates going out. Yeah, I failed at that. That happened. That happened. There's another floating carpet. So, yeah, I am going to pause my video here. Hopefully I eventually will get these all gelled into one big video and tear all of this down, and then you can see my rebuilding process. And hopefully this time we'll get the actual video of the actual build instead of me getting like halfway through and going, oh, I don't like that, never mind, and tearing it all down and then not videoing when I actually built it. So, I will see you guys in a bit.
Okay, welcome back to my build. As you can see, I have removed everything that was in the house and have it all up here now organized. And I have altered where the house is going to be. I have moved it. Previously, this is where the house was. And instead of that being the entrance to the house, I have now added the second set of stairs and moved the foundation down here further. And I actually managed to get it flat. Check it out. Properly flat foundation. Yay! Part of why I moved it is I wanted to get it a little further away from the actual island, Coldharbor Island. You're wondering, like, why didn't I just build up here on this already perfectly flat foundation provided? But it's because this super ugly dead earth, dead grass thing motif that is all over Coldharbor it was just too hard to get it green and looking right. And so where I had the house previously, I was lured by all of those nice little bottom areas sticking out that you could build on. I was lured by those and trying to put greenery and grass on them, which defeats the whole purpose of not building on the island itself. So we built out here. And here we're going to get started with our actual build. I love these Fargrave colonnade. And you may have seen, I've used them in a lot of my projects. And the big reason for it is they come with a roof already. You may think that's a silly reason. I mean, all of these pillars, they're really annoying to build around. How is it worth it to have that little bit of roof? But roofing is the bane of my existence, and getting a roof to look right as you go around a not simple rectangular build, it's a pain. There's no way to cut a roofing tile bit in half, so they always are sticking out somewhere. Either the inside looks ugly or the outside looks ugly, and I wanted it to be pretty. So having these where they already have a roof allows you to do much better transitions. Inside and outside, you don't have these ugly little things sticking up. Very handy. So get these placed for areas where I want to have basically a view outside. Turn them into sort of the large window sort of thingies that I like to make them. Okay, we'll start with our door here, and we're going to try to center that so it looks like a natural entrance. I did a pretty good job. We're going to put up our walls. We like to keep the open pillars to the outside prettiness on the inside of the house, similar to having a inside courtyard. It's safe and protected by the outside walls. Now, this one isn't technically. Outside walls are still unprotected, but considering we're floating over nothingness, I think it'll work. We will ignore the flying creatures. So, get those walls set, and you may be wondering why I didn't finish that wall there, but it's because I only have a few of these walls. We're doing this build at a time when I don't have a lot of extra supplies. This is my leftovers, and I don't have money to buy more, and I don't have the supplies to make more, so we're going to do with what we have and make it work. Most of my builds are with what we have and make it work anyways. I know a lot of people actually really plan their builds out, but I don't. You also might notice how very difficult it is to get these lined up when you can't see the thing. For example, that is nowhere near lined up. You really have to run around and get a lot of different views and angles on things to be able to see what you're doing. The objects are too big, and when you're inside, building from inside a house where there's no way to get outside, you're creating an ugly challenge for yourself. Okay, so now we're looking to figure out what are we going to do to fill in these gaps that we have. I could do a platform turned on its side to be a wall, but it's going to look very different. Looking here to see if I have enough crowns to do a couple walls, and I don't. I only have enough for one. I have a paid subscription, so I get crowns every month, and I have already spent those crowns on some other builds and other things. So, nope. We're going to have to figure out, we're going to have to make do. Straightening my walls. You can see trying to get these lined up is fun. And there are some added, like you can do some add-ons that'll help you get those all lined up perfect and straight. I don't use any of those. I do it by eye, which is why my stuff sometimes looks a little wonky. I don't recommend doing it by eye. If you can figure out those other programs, it's certainly going to make your life much easier, but this is me, and I'm stubborn and old, and I do this the way I want. So that looked really ugly from the front. It was not going to match my wall and make the building look funky, but it is a perfect size to fill in this gap here. So we're going to stick it there. And then we're going to figure out what to do to fill in that last little gap later. Sort of at the time had a vague idea. Not a real idea, but a vague idea, and so we do that later. Okay, let's do some interior walls. I had planned that this section back here was going to be bedroom and bathroom. The idea that my one fountain would stick through the wall and be a feature on the outside as well as a bathtub on the inside. So here I am trying to figure out how I'm going to configure this bathroom and bedroom. Badly. This is how I'm going to configure them badly, I should say. Yeah. Straight, getting things straight. And oftentimes this becomes a labor of why do these things not all fit properly? They're all lay-in. Right now I'm dealing with lay-in walls, lay-in the floor, and lay-in inside walls. They should all match up, right? But they don't. So, here's me figuring out a slightly different way to do it. Which, honestly, this works better, but it's not what I end up with finally, because I end up with a very small bathroom, which is fine, but then a very, very narrow bedroom, which is not fine. But I come up with a better idea later. And honestly, I think this is the way... It's just the way I build. Like, put it together. Okay, that works for now. We'll figure it out later. And that's sort of my methodology. You might wonder why we're going right off the edge here. I do have one more platform that I'm planning to use as sort of the paved area of my outdoor area on one side. So my thought process was when I put that in, I'll put that in when I'm going to do the whole gardening outside bit. Actually, is not where I ended up using it, but alright, so now to do some roofing tiles. Now we have these are actually shed roof, lean-to, there we go. And they are pretty much our only genuine roofing available. And trying to get them to fit in the proper space is unholy. I usually put them on one wall and then do the other side and try to make them meet up in the middle, and they frequently don't. My roof looks really ugly. So I decided to be all clever and do this where I put them together, link them, parent and child, so I can just grab one and have this perfect, evenly pitched roof all the way along, and it won't look like all ugly. See, this is harder than it should be. Why, when I grab it, am I suddenly looking at that bottom corner and not the top corner that I need to have match up? Good question. This is a problem with all of their house furnishings, but especially the bigger ones, that when you go to grab the piece, you will always grab it from the same point. This is a problem because if you need to look at the other side of the thing, good luck. You'll find your character continually turning around to look at the wrong side of it and then have to do this move it, look, move it, look, move it, look dance, which is just unfortunate. So having these be where I can move one and have it move the whole set makes it so much easier to build a roof. And I really, that's probably what everybody else has been doing, and I'm just slow to the game. But we're able to, with much patience and slowness, put this together and build a pretty consistent roof that's actually going to look nice. I don't have to sit through building the entire thing. We're going to do this one last piece here and show you how easy it is to then adjust. Note, I made sure the pieces that I was moving, not the child pieces, but the other piece, the masterpiece, were all on the front of the house, so that then I could come out here and go, oh yeah, that doesn't match up at all, and fix it from outside, and it would move both pieces and keep them consistent. Smart! So, now that you've kind of got an idea there of how to do that little easy bit of roofing, note I just have to do the two pieces all the way across because I have that additional roof piece with it. Okay, we are back. The roofing is all done, and it is time to start doing some more building. And there's a whole lot of running back and forth and trying to decide things here. Like, okay, this is a master bedroom. I want to have a door out onto my little outdoor garden. So setting that doorway up. And then kind of think we should have a doorway here, especially since I have extra of these doorways leading out into that garden. But then I'm just not sure what's going to work. And we've still got these gaps to fill. So I actually have an idea for filling the gaps, as well as filling some other things. Part of it being sticking stained glass windows in them. And you can laugh here as I could not find where that one stained glass window was listed, as most of them are listed under lights, and that particular one is art instead. It's under gallery. So, see if we stick that up there. That fills that gap in nicely, and it looks really pretty, and will make a lovely light as well. So now these gaps, and I have this idea about using some more of the blue stained glass windows, the ones from Fargrave, in there. However, I need a frame of some sort, and I know that these long retaining walls are long enough to match up to the castle walls. I've actually used them in builds before, and no, they are not even. I will fix that in a moment. For now, I'm just getting them in the basic place they need to be. And then I will go in, and there is actually a way to get them straight. The problem is a lot of the tools you use orient to the ground. So if you're not on ground, this can be some very, very funky ways that it orients it. But I actually did find something that worked. It didn't make them a little funny, but it made them nice and straight. So it was worth it. Oh, and my roof, I left that roof out a bit whack, so I had to fix it. So straightening these nicely, that's under Precision Edit H is what I'm using there. And now we are going to use these blue stained glass windows to fill in the gap. And I know that it is not straight. I just sort of laughed there at myself at how not straight it was, but now that I have a fancy trick I can use to straighten things when there's no other object to straighten them to, I know I can get it fixed. Confusing the whole system by building out over nothing. There we go. So that fills that gap in nicely. It makes for fun lighting inside, and from outside it actually looks pretty cool. We'll go look at that later. So now I'm trying to decide where to build my kitchen, and I kept changing my mind. I finally decided this side was the best. And I'm going to start with I'm calling it my bread oven. It's basically just a giant oven. The first time I made one of these, I made it out of blocks, and it took up way too many slots. So then I was like, oh, I can just use these curved retaining walls, and that is much faster and easier. Nice thing about this is I don't have to worry about what I'm going to do on this corner to kind of fill in and make walls, because the oven already really does it for me. Takes up a lot of space. If you think about it, it would keep this area nice and warm. It probably provides heat for that little outdoor area as well. We won't talk about how much heat that would cause, though. Later on, I have a sort of freezer fridge thing I put in the area. It would probably melt it, but we're going to ignore that. So getting this all straight here takes some little finagling, but it works. Now we got to block off the entrance to retain heat to some extent, not too much, because it can't see inside, it's not effective. Put in our racks there and our front. Okay, now we are going to use this as our sort of window ledge wall, and then we're going to put in our area for our range. This is where I'm going to stick my burners. And now time to figure out where I'm going to put my sink. So I've got to come back up and get the components for the sink. So we want water trough and a fountain. And let's grab our flames to use as our heating source for our kitchen. We do a lot of running back and forth here, but I wanted to make sure I didn't use too many slots in my build, so I left everything in situ so I couldn't go over my slot limits. I still did try, but you know. Let's put in our burners, and now time to place our sink. And you get to watch me run around trying to figure out where I want my sink at. I think a lot of people use this fountain for running water in sinks. It is perfect. You can stick it in most of the walls. And then the water trough frequently gets used as your sink itself, as you can basically hide the ugly water troughness of it. And then it becomes a sink full of water. I like to use a couple of short retaining walls and some of the pieces from Clockwork City. Like so. So now we got our sink and our range, and I decide I am going to make that a doorway after all. I debated on it, and I really think it does work. I have extra of these walls and doors, so perfect. And while I'm sitting here, it occurs to me that I actually want to move my whole bedroom and bathroom. So I decide to move the bathroom over to here, which allows that whole back area to become the bedroom. And this works out much better. But while I'm doing it, I notice that my Fargrave structure is in the wrong spot. It's not linked up with the other ones. It's too far away. The pillars are not in alignment, which makes for a funky zone there where I'm trying to make a little hallway. So we do a lot of adjusting. And you see here where I'm looking up at one direction and suddenly switched around the other way. That is not me turning around. That is every time you click on the housing object, it will flip you around the other direction to look at the other end. So annoying. So annoying. But much fiddling with it, and I finally get it to work. That stupid piece of roofing. I put it there kind of temporarily, and I finally do fix it, but it drove me crazy there for a while. Okay, so now we got some gaps to fill in, because of course the inside of these Leowin inside walls are much shorter than the castle walls. So fill in that gap, and then put in my bathroom wall. And if that wall looks a little crooked to you, that's because it is. I never did actually go back and fix it. I will probably fix it later. So now this whole back area becomes the bedroom. And I did a lot of fussing because I wanted the doorway to line up with the columns, and it just doesn't work. I have to finally give up. The door is not going to be aligned with the columns. There's just no way to do it. So we end up with a little bit weirdness here. Trying to figure out, again, I wanted to put that door in with the columns. It's not working. How do we make it work? So that space is too big for just one wall, wastes two walls on a tiny space. Aha! See, and I remembered to grab, didn't I? Nope. See, I was going to do that, but I couldn't find it, so I do later on stick that up there. So here's that outdoor piece of that I'm going to use as like a tiled courtyard area, and that is not where I intended to have it originally, but hey, it actually gets moved around several times. So these retaining walls make perfect low walls or windowsills when you're using these big arches as your giant windows. Whether those have glass in them or not is up to your imagination. They don't give us anything we can use to fill that in with glass. So we make do. Me staring at I do that often. These are one of the biggest reasons these are sped up is just the sheer vast amount of time I spend staring at my screen doing nothing. My mental processes are not that fast, evidently, so I will just put something and then stare while I think. So here's where we run into our first problem. That is the limit for the map. So that's not going to work. I can't have the entrance to my little bedroom garden be there because reasons. So let's just move it over. Okay. Now this wall's going to stick through, but we'll figure that out. Doesn't look horrible. Okay. Okay, try this again. And oh, nope, still at the limit. Well, that's going to be the smallest garden ever, or maybe just not worth having the garden there. So give up on that. Now that wall doesn't stick through, and the bedroom doesn't really need its own garden because this is really a one-person dwelling anyways. She has guests occasionally, but okay. So this is what I'm going to use as my sort of lawn. These hedges cannot be walked through, so that you can walk on them safely. The bottom of them makes a great flat surface, and that's going to be very cool. So get these all set up here, this corner. Okay, now let's do a second layer of them. Oh, that whole corner is cut off. Okay, we're still running into the map limits here, so let's move this courtyard over here, which means everything I've just done goes away, and we try it again. This happens a lot in building, especially when you're building up high or down low or near map edges. You just never know where you're going to run into that limit. So you get creative. So now we'll make this garden area the greenery one. Little rocky entrance. And let's stick us some lawn here. And of course, I said you can't walk through it. It also means for some reason your character will not step over it. Let's drop those all down so that I can walk out easily. And I actually do a trick here at the edges where some of the edges I've actually raised up a little bit, so it's a little less obvious that you're running into the build limits. And it also keeps people that are wandering around in there, they're a little less likely to try to force their way further and plummet off the edge, because if you are running hard enough and you hit the edge, it'll run you sideways right off of something. Okay, and my plan is to put the taller hedges here, which I have not grabbed yet, as a wall so you can't see the ugly. And I got distracted as I was going up. Oh hey, I've got a bunch of these hedges left. Let's go ahead and sort of blockade the edges of our route down. It'll help with the greenery and flowers and trees I plan for later, to have that as sort of your starting point, and also keep people from plummeting to their doom off the edge. We try to keep people from plummeting, maybe a little bit, myself included. Myself mostly. Okay. Done that. Let's go grab those hedges. So these are the taller hedges. Grab those real quick. And I've got a couple of real short ones there. And while I'm at it, yes! The one I thought I had already grabbed and hadn't. Okay. So let's finish that. And you can see I can go inside, make sure that hedge isn't sticking through the wall, because that is something I tend to do. I tend to accidentally stick things through. It's easy to forget, especially if you've been building in a place that has a already pre-built house, because the inside of the house is its own separate entity. You can stick things through the wall and it makes no difference. But when you're building your own house, yeah, they're not zoned. You have to do the care not to stick greenery through the wall. So here, using that to fill the space and then just blocking off the extra with some of those Clockwork City metal bits. And here, similar thing, I've got that one shutter. I've had that forever. Got it for an early build and just use it occasionally. And blocking off the bits. And then I've got this huge ass gap. And look at how off my roofing ended up there. So I had a clever idea. Okay. That would fill it in nicely. Can you see it from outside, though? That is the concern. Because the whole... you can. The whole point was to have the roof line look nice, and that does not look nice. Also, that one extra bit of roofing looks ugly. So that will have to be fixed as well. Okay. Back down there to fix that. So... that wall is not going to work. I'm going to have to use some more of our lovely little scavenge plates from Clockwork City. And yes, they stick down through. I originally thought I was going to build something there to make that become like a feature instead of an ugly. I ran out of slots. I never did. But they don't look too obvious. It doesn't look too ugly because at least it's symmetrical. I had the clever idea, well, since this is not going to be a garden area, let's just drag the roofing down a little further. That fills in that gap nicely and actually doesn't show at all from any direction. Perfect! Okay, yay! Continuing on with our building. So, do some looking here for what we're going to do next, and notice that roof was uneven, so I had to fix it. Alright, so need to hide that this wall sort of sticks out too far, and I wanted to try and see how big this new rock was from High Isle. The answer is very big. I love it. I really wish I had had these rocks when I was working on my Khajiit embassy, because they take up a lot of space. Basically just sticking these rocks out here. Most of them are farther than the edge of the limit, but I still want to sort of safety device this garden. It would look unsafe if there was nothing there blocking. And then going to just add some rocks here to my greenery. That helps make it look like it's actually the greenery is part of land rather than just greenery floating over nothing, which is sort of what it looks like at the moment. Okay, now we're going to come, and I noticed that the well, when I got up there, that was not what I was planning to grab, but seeing it, I was like, oh yes, before I forget, because last time I forgot it. So I wanted to make it a feature, and I think it looks better in the lawn area where it's going to be a big feature than in the other area where it's going to be kind of one thing amongst a bunch of other stuff. Alright, let's grab our bathroom stuff. This is all the stuff we need to put together our bathroom. And I was trying to remember which one of those planters I was using in that fountain. So, that. And while we're at it, we'll grab statues for the courtyard and a few more things to decorate the bedroom. Alright. Fast run! Woohoo! I'm so glad this is sped up. These videos were so ridiculously long. At this time it was getting late. I was very, very tired and I was very goofy. So originally wanted this to be half in the room, half in the courtyard, and of course half in the bathroom to take up the entire bathroom. So it ended up a quarter in the bathroom, a quarter in the courtyard, and half of it in this giant bedroom, which it works. The bedroom actually probably would have been a little too empty and hard to fill without it. So, bathroom sink. Similar to the other one, we're using this fountain as our water source. Gonna put in our counter here with some retaining walls. And then, if I can remember where it hit it, basin as your sink, and a little dwarven gear as the drain. Works pretty well. Now, previously I had the mirror sort of over the top of the fountain, and I like that so much better, so the whole fountain had to move. Everything had to move and adjust so that I could put the mirror back over the fountain. It just looks better right above the sink. Everything looks more balanced that way. So, yeah. And a lot of times you just have to do it to figure it out. Some hand towels. Oh, yes. The toilet. I like to use these thrones. Mostly because they're ugly. And what on earth else are you going to do with all of these thrones that you've collected? So they become toilets in my house. Some thread to be the toilet paper holder, and these Ashlander cups make the perfect toilet paper. Cannot recommend highly enough. They look white and circular. Some vampiric bottles of scary substance become nice little soap or hand products for your bathroom. Okay, now time to decorate these, because I can't just leave them as fountains. They don't look nice that way. So since this one's outside, it gets the lily pads and the pretty lighting feature. I think this really beautifies the whole thing and makes it look less like a random fountain stuck through the wall and more like an actual proper feature. But now I've got 3 separate areas to decorate, so this was a little more challenging than I planned. Figuring out how to divvy stuff up so that everything still got decorated enough to look right. And I remembered I put these flower boxes on the edges, which is lovely. That works great, but I just stuck those flowers there. So move everything, rearrange, and then we can move stuff back. That turned out sort of pretty. Okay, and bathtub, that should go in the bedroom as well, since it doesn't fit in the little bathroom. And as I was looking at stuff, I realized that I had not stuck those in the oven and the fireplace. And then as I was doing it, I realized I'd only grabbed one of them for the oven. I hadn't grabbed the fireplace yet. Silly me. So get my lights in those. Yes, they have fires to actually use in fireplaces, but I've got all these ridiculous braziers. And what else are you going to do with them? So looking at this, I remembered that I have like a whole freaking building to add. I've got this lovely orcish gazebo, and I had totally forgotten about it. So that has to become part of the garden, which necessitated some real shifting of things. And I didn't want to see this side of the house, so I really needed to get that blocked. I didn't want to see the sort of ugly Coldharbor stuff in the background either, so we ended up sort of hedging this in. Not ideal to have it all hedged in when it's supposed to be gardeny. I really should have extended it out further, but I didn't. And as it was, it ended up being just the right size because if you make it too big, then you've got to fill it. And then filling it, you end up with too much stuff and you use too many slots. And it's like a never-ending problem. So instead, we're here trying to figure out how we're going to work this. Because now we don't have quite enough of those hedges. And that does not work. That is a totally different color and is very obvious. So instead, I've got this statue. So give him a little raised area to be standing on. That's Vivek, one of the so-called living gods of the of Morrowind, the Dark Elves. And his statue is all pretty and shiny, so works perfect there. And I realized I had a little gap there, so I filled it in for safety purposes. I really didn't need to, but better safe than sorry. Okay. Now I gotta figure out what I'm doing next. I did this a lot. Run around, stare at things, try to figure out what I'm doing. Stare at my bags. What do I have in my bags? What am I supposed to be doing? Oh, yes. And I figured out that I still had one little roof gap. As you can see it far, far in the distance there. Could I have left that unfilled? Probably. Nobody would have noticed. But I had noticed it in running by, so I had to fill it. The problem being there is nowhere near it to fill. So as I'm running over here to check, I notice that my roof is out of alignment. But I can't click on it. Why can't I click on it? Well, I'm still holding the next piece of that metal to fill the space, and I'm pretty sure I've dropped one in some nether region of nothingness. Probably have a whole extra thing there that I will find when I tear this down in the future. I discovered I could not adjust that from anywhere other than clear the other side of the room, because there just was nowhere you could see it. Finding little mistakes as I'm running around staring up in the sky. I really want to get another one of those stained glass windows for this other end. I do change my mind later. You'll see me fill it in with some blue ones, but then the final video you'll notice I changed my mind yet again and tore it all down. So, okay, time to carpet this place. And while I'm at it, let's grab our bedroom furnishings. So, trying to remember which pillows I used on the bed, and I actually grabbed the red ones. The bed is green. That was not the color I meant to get, but I went with it. It looked fine. Actually replaced the bed later on anyways, but it worked fine with the green. So now to lay out the bedroom. So vanity here in this corner, using the desk as a vanity. So we need the mirror, which I accidentally dropped in the wall, so now I need to retrieve it. I don't know how it ended up backwards, too. That was very weird. Okay. Now to put the various little things here. I was looking there, if you're wondering why I was searching. I was looking for a light. I normally put the light source there, but I hadn't grabbed any light sources, so silly me. I go back and fix that later. So, lining up these to create one bed instead of two. Pillow them up. This is a nifty trick, by the way. A lot of times you end up with a lot of these single beds, especially if you're buying furnished houses. Or if you can make single beds and don't have any big double beds you can make that are nice. Sometimes it actually works better to just stick two of the single beds together to make a fine double. It can look nicer even, which is odd. But hey, house decorating, yo. Okay, bedroom's all assembled. And then I remembered the chair. There we go. Okay. More little things for bathroom and bedroom. I like to think these little boxes hold like makeup or something. That's what it sort of vaguely looks like to me, so that's what I keep using them for. Jewelry boxes. Grabbed all these little decorations for the bedroom. Gotta get them out of my bag so I can grab the next set. Time for rugs. Now, when you're using something, this floor is not bad, but the other floor is the ancient elsewhere platforms, and it's just ugly. So as much as possible, you want to cover it up with rugs. There's some really large rugs that people use that I don't have. And actually, looking there for the long, super long green one that I have, it's an elven green one. It's really pretty, and it wasn't until I was looking through my bags for it that I realized it never made it in the other house, the original version of this house. So I didn't have it to use here. I did go get it later and use it to fill in a gap, but so lining some rugs up and trying to fill in this space. Carpet this puppy up. Like I said, I wish I had those really big ones, but I don't, and I can't be bothered to go buy them for somebody. Not when I have all of these other rugs that I can make. Suppose it would be worth it at some point just to not waste so many slots on rugs, but I thought, ooh, this water one would be beautiful in the bathroom, but it's too big. So we'll use this one instead. And save that one for under the bathtub. And while I'm here, let's put the doors in. Now this is not the door that's meant for here. It just is a door that I happen to have. A gate for outside. And castle door, this is meant to fit here. And one of the first times that the devs made a door that actually fits the doorway it was designed for. You guys have probably heard me complain about that before. Okay, now I am trying to figure out what on earth I'm doing. Let's look into my bags. What do I have left? Aha! I have some statues left. Okay. So, figure out where these statues are going to live. And honestly, I normally move them around much more before I decide on a place. I am shocked to death because these actually just stayed. They just stayed where they were at. And I had forgotten towels and the carpet. And that carpet had to go up too high so as not to get messed up by the rumple in the red and gold ones. So it was sticking through the bottom of the tub. I had to fix it. Okay, time to grab the next batch of stuff. We're going to grab kitchen stuff. We're going to put our rest of our kitchen together. As well as a few things of lighting, because you noted I was missing some lighting stuff. And more of the bedroom decorations that remembered while we're at it. Let's grab living room. And decorations for the living room. And figure out where we're using our tables and chairs. Okay. Okay, we've hit our final segment. We are getting close to done with our decorating. It doesn't look like it, does it? Oh, here we're going to start with our living room. Now you may say, living room, why did I just pull out beds? Because what this game considers a couch is a tiny, tiny piece of furniture. It's hardly any bigger than a chair, and it just does not fill up the space as much as a couch would. So clever house decorating people started using beds, generally two of them, one flat and one on its side, to create couches. I only had one of each of these, so I got a little more clever. I'm using some bookshelves as the back, so that I can have library on one side and living room on the other. Haha! And then just putting pillows up against them. So here we're setting up our couches, our little living area right by the fireplace. Got our end tables. Those are actually some they're meant for the bedroom, but they're nice little hutches with drawers in them, so perfect for in a living room. Little storage space and a little area to rest your drink on. Alright, so now we're going to pillow up the back of these to make them look more like a couch. I think this is actually pretty effective, although it uses a lot of pillows. Trying to go with which ones match color-wise where. Gotta make sure I put these dark elf pillows on the dark elf bed since the symbols match. And voila! There we go. Now we have 2 beautiful couches. Now let's see how to fill up the rest of this room in the living room. So here's our little glass display, and I think it fits there best. Got some art. I think it fills that corner in nicely. Now our mammoth skull. Now this is an antiquity, and I'm really looking for where it fills in the space nicely more than anything. Now here's where I said I was going to decide to fill these in with the blue ones, and then I changed my mind later. And I had 4 of them left. So of course I'm like, okay, stick 1 in the middle. Wait, that's not going to work. 4 means I need to start at the edges and work my way in. Ironic thing being 3 fills the space, so I could have just started with the middle one. Doubly ironic because I rip it all down later, but that's a part of building. Doing stuff and then tearing it all down later. Alright, time to... Oh, 1 more window. Never mind. Please ignore. Yeah. Looking for more decorative things, and I found these. For some reason listed in the rugs, these flower petals. Okay, time for the dining table. Kitchen table. I like this one because it's octagonal, just like the pavilion is. Well, I think the pavilion's more than octagonal, but still, it matches. And I think that works nicely as a desk. Color scheme works for the 2 of them, the wood one against the wood paneling and the stone one against the stone of the retaining wall. So now to figure out which chairs to use where. These chairs match that table. And this is where I decide that the fancy chair should be in the bedroom to match the fancy furniture in there. And then the bench I wanted to put so you could either sit with your back to the table or your back to the statue, either which way. Music box. These are the cutest music boxes. They actually little windows open and these little horses and riders go around inside. They're really pretty to watch it sometime if you get a chance, stop and stare at it. Okay. Looking to see what am I doing next. Aha! Now that I know where my study area is, I know where to put the bookshelf. And these window boxes help make these look more like a window and a solid wall rather than just... This one, of course, is not in with the pillars. So it just becomes a decoration on top of that wall. Flower bed? Nah, I don't even know what to call it. Okay. Just again, looking through my stuff to figure out what do I have left to decorate with. Time to set up for behind the bed. I later stick a bunch of flowers and other things in this. Make it real pretty. But for now, that main part, make it a big feature by the bed. Searching, what do I have left? So of course, that space was too small for the painting, but this one is perfect. Looking for spaces to put it. Like, oh, got another space over here that needs filling. So these paintings that are part of ESO Plus are very handy because they do not use a traditional slot. So it gives you more. You only have 700 traditional slots. It gives you more leeway using those paintings rather than the normal ones. Alright, time to set up my cupboards. This time I was smart and started at the window instead of at the edge and then trying to wedge one in between the window and the previous one. Sometimes I learn from my mistakes. So, setting up cupboards for the kitchen. I love these little cupboards, partly because they dovetail together so nicely. And I wanted to use this for stuff for the formal dining, but I realized it was hanging over the head of the chair, so that wasn't going to work. People would bang their heads. So I use it to help fill in some spaces there. It sort of works. Now, to do something new. I usually use one of the glass cases to make my freezer, but I didn't have an extra one and didn't have money to buy one. And so I decided to make a contraption for my freezer instead. I actually really like this idea. I think it works really well, and it's kind of fun to do something different. So these are just the clockwork supports, and then some of the plain metal panels. And I'm running outside here to make sure you cannot see it from outside. Very important when you're sticking things through the wall. Oh. Searching through stuff, and I found more things. I'll do this a lot. If I suddenly run to the other side of the house, it's because I found something and I want to do it quickly while I'm thinking of it. So I want to do some hanging baskets here. So I need to support something for them to be hanging from. And these supports are not quite the right length for this, but I conveniently have this wall here. So look at that, it fits perfect. Okay. So hanging basket time. These are such pretty furnishings. Got those from a friend. Light over the dining table. Oh yes. My sconces that I had pulled out for lighting for in here. So all of a sudden I remembered, oh yes, I pulled these lights earlier to use and never used them. Okay. What are we doing now? Oh, we're going to get more stuff. Because I did not have the lighting feature I wanted. Pull all the lighting features! Okay. Now I wanted one outside the door, which is why I ran back out. Ran in, ran out. There we go. I love these. Get these in elsewhere. They're really pretty and impressive looking. To have candelabra on the table. Now this is a clever thing. I discovered this working with these colonnades, that if you have one of these outdoor light fixtures, you can hide them inside, and look at that. It's perfect, like a little lighting fixture, all 3 different lighting fixtures in one. Alright, check this out. So these are my braziers of the frozen flame. Well, if it's frozen flame, that should be keeping things cold, right? So stick those in there, one on either side. And then stick some ice. And then some snow. I cannot figure out how I want the snow to go. I try several different things. I kind of like the idea that it's so cold, it's actually frosting up outside of the bounds of it. So I went for a little overlap, something I don't normally do. I kind of love it. So I was glad I did it. Finally! Remember I said I would come back and put this light fixture here? So I actually like it. It's making it a part of the mirror. Light up mirror, right? And now we're just going to add lighting fixtures. First we'll go through the list. So, oh, good thing to note. If you do not stick some sort of lighting feature inside these glass cases, you can't really see what's inside of them. I highly recommend sticking at least something in there. And some of the things you can actually hide in the base of it, so it's not obvious. I love these deadlines wall lighting. They're so pretty. Okay, so now we're just going to stick lighting fixtures everywhere we see is kind of shadowed. This is really best to do when it's a little dark. Bright daytime, it can be hard to see where the shadows in your house are. So if you could time this so it happens to be dark when you're doing it, it really makes it easier to figure out where light is still needed. Okay, curtain for the bedroom. Yes, it should have a door, but I ran out of doors. And the curtain, if there's only one person that lives here and occasionally she has visitors, that makes sense. She doesn't really need a door, right? Okay. Now we're going to grab up all the rest of our inside decoration things. Part of the reason we did everything inside first, really, instead of doing all of the outside decorations and gardening it up, making it all pretty, is because I have a tendency to garden it all up, make it all pretty, and then realize I don't have enough decorations inside the house. I like to prioritize the wrong thing there. So this time, since I'd already sort of plotted out with the previous build how many things I could work with, I did the inside first to really give myself the most leeway to make sure that this fit and worked, and then did the outside. I really think that worked better. Turning these into some hanging fruit baskets up here. I don't know how she reaches that fruit. That would be way too high. But if it's any lower, then the heat from the stove would affect it, right? And we can't have that. My logic on these. So now that I've created this fancy freezer, I have to figure out how on earth would you use it. It really should have shelves. But I didn't do shelves. So we just made things work. That's what you do. Trying to figure out, okay, where would I put stuff? Normally stick stuff in the snow, which is what I do with this pumpkin, but I eventually just decide to use sort of the bottom as my main area to store, and then use the rest for hanging, and that works. So of course we have this, our hanging protein. Our bunny, our ducks, our fish. It's funny, like, none of the things I would actually eat do they have in game. Well, that's not true. They do have a side of ham. Now do our baked goods. Gotta make best use out of that oven. Set up our cooking implements. Plates. Plates and cups for dining. And I realized I sunk that one in too far, but it won't let me grab it again, so I just left it. I did fix it later. I fix a lot of things later and just leave them at the time. When you're first setting your house up, you're basically just setting up the where you think it should go. And when you're all done, you do a run through and you put the things that are floating so that they're touching how they're supposed to. You go through and recheck everything because it's almost impossible to get everything right when you're first doing it. I guess maybe some people are able to, but nobody I know that does these. Again, make it all perfect right at the beginning. You have to just sort of get everything out and placed, because then you can really see where more things are needed and what else needs to happen. Okay, so these can either be cook pots, or I decide to turn them into pots for flowers. Same thing with these. So they're supposed to be a vase. That's clearly not a vase. Why on earth do they list it as that? It's clearly a flower pot of some sort, or a put stuff in it sort of pot. So you can see how easy it is to see these decorations inside that with the lights in there. Okay, and again here we are decorating based on a bit on aesthetics, but mostly just on where is there a space that needs filling and what do I have that'll fill it. That guy is clearly aquatic, so he needed to be in there, in the water fountain. So sometimes we use logic to decide where these things go, and sometimes we use what is that size and shape. But I find it looks more realistic if it's a little bit random. If you think about how we organize our houses, unless you've got a professional decorator, a lot of times they're just, where's convenient for something to live? And so some of these books that I'm sticking in this case obviously are not designed to go in a bookcase. They're designed to go on like a desk or something. But it happened to be what I had, so we get a little creative with it. I do come in later and fill those in with more books. Then later on I end up switching it out for bookcases that already have books in it, so I have more slots to use for other things. Okay, now it is time to garden this place up. So now we're going to pick up all of our outdoor decorations, and you might notice there's this distinct lack of a place for the aquatic stuff to go. I originally was going to have that sort of under the ocean area theme, underwater theme area, and I gave up on it. With the new floor plan of the house, it didn't make sense. It was going to use way too many slots and just not really be ideal. So there's a much faster way. I could have been picking these up, but I don't, because sometimes I like to do things the really difficult way first to drive myself crazy. I do figure it out before I'm done. Like, this is taking forever. Yeah, here. Look how much easier this is. Sometimes you have to do things the hard way. Okay. Now we're going to go garden it up. Starting with our trees. Well, that doesn't work. That cover no point of having the statue there if you cover him with a tree. Nope. There we go. And again, just like with the furnishings and decorating, this is really just where does it fit? Where does it fit, not stick through the walls? Important. And where can I put this that it'll look right and do its job of filling in that space? Sometimes you fill in the space too much, so I went back and I looked. It was just too full the way it was. Keep in mind I said those rocks are really off the map. So if I stick furnishing there, I have to retrieve it in order to get it. I can't grab it again because I've stuck it too far off the map. Part of that desk, I wanted to have it be a pretty view out that window, so I stick a lot of stuff randomly sort of over there around the edge of the building. You can't really see it. So you wonder, like, why did I stick it there? But it's specifically to make it so that it's a pretty view when you're outside or when you're sitting at the desk. Pretty view out the window. So I had that big gap here where I didn't have enough of the hedges to fill that in. So I filled it in with a tree. Haha. Try a few things here and don't like them and just tear them down again. So you'll see lots of me putting things places, moving them back out of it again. A lot of times visually it looks nice, but then as you fill in more, it doesn't look nice anymore. And you have to redo it. But I think that's part of the fun, right? All of these pretty trees. I had to find a home for all of them. They're so pretty. I love the ones that drop petals too, because it just really adds to the overall effect. Some of these hardier looking trees up here so that when you first come in there is some visual interest. This, when we're all done, we're going to close that rock off so that you can't get out in the rest. And not that you can't. You can still make it over and go that way, but more just so that it directs people where to go, because people will fail to find the house that you've built, I've discovered. I decided to fill in this sort of gap between the hedge and the top of the pavilion here so that even more so you can't see the ugly back behind, and so that all that pretty is sort of sticking out at you. So I wanted to frame him, and I just kept covering his face. It was really funny. But then I had a thought that maybe these bushes would work better. Sure enough, they do. Look at that. And that helps hide the sort of awkward end of the hedge. Okay, now to decorate around my statues here. Turn these into little flower beds. These are some of the new high aisle flowers. I cannot tell you how happy I was to find that the flowers they had available were big bunches of things. So often it's like you go to get a flower, oh, that's pretty, and it's tiny, and it doesn't fill up anything, and it just wastes a slot. That's no fun. So I really appreciated these big, bold flower bed filling things that really saves on slots and helps you fill up the area without wasting too much. And of course, these are my old standby for filling in spaces. I love these. I use them absolutely everywhere. Blooming sunbirds. Nice thing about the blooming sunbirds is they are purchasable in game. So some of this stuff is only there at the Lux Furniture at certain times of, like, once a year, and some of it's purchasable in the game store for real world money. But a few of these flowers, well, not a few, a lot of what I bought are available at various different furnishing sellers in the in-game, so you can buy them for gold. And part of the reason you'll see that I tend to have the same things, like these saplings, over and over again, is because they are purchasable for in-game gold. That just makes all the difference. You want to save your special flowers for special builds and special places, and use the average, the common ones that you can get. You want to use those to fill in the gaps. At least that's how I think of it. Okay. These are some more of the Lex Furniture stuff. It's funny how having that Lex Furniture only sell them once a year basically turns them into such a hot ticket item. These things sell for quite a bit on the other parts of the year because people are like, oh, I want those. Yeah, well, you can get it again next year. Now that I finally have a way to churn money out, I purchase a lot when I get the chance so that I have them to use. Filling in all my little flower pots as well as gardening up outside. You can see how little rhyme or reason I have for picking these spots. Just jamming stuff in where it's convenient. Do try to go with certain color theory, but otherwise getting stuck on the hedges there. Forgot that I had set some of them up to be a little higher than the others. I kind of had that purple area set up there, but it didn't fit there, so moved it out. And some of these single flower items look really good and added to the flower boxes. It gives it a little more interest. Okay. Kind of looking at what I have left because I still have a lot of this ground cover. And I decided, since I had the slots, everything's pretty well decorated, that I was going to go ahead and really green up this path down. I really like how it turned out. I think it adds to the sort of feel of the whole cottage when you kind of go through this greenery filled area to get there. Love these. These are another High Isle product. Look how big and bushy they are. They fill in so much space. Blooming sunbirds again. Nice way to add some more flowered effect to the path to the house. Same thing with the had 2 saplings left. Like, oh, some trees left. Help fill in spots here. Yeah, I'm quiet right now. You should have seen how quiet I was during filming this. I literally just stopped talking because my brain was fully occupied with what I was doing. It's funny. Like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to be talking to people, not just doing. So I decided everywhere else had been greened up. this first stairwell just needed something alongside it. And since I had so many of these Halfgar, they're nice big ferny things, and if you get enough of them, they can really sort of fill in there. Where was it? There it is. These ivy bushes. I actually got these with the colossal Aldmeri Grotto. They were part of the came with it furnishings. Of course, I didn't want them inside my house, which is where they were when I bought it, inside the area that I built my house in. So I've just been sort of holding on to them to use. They're perfect for filling in some space. So I got all to that and decided this really needs some trees. And I had stuck these extras sort of in various places. Perfect. I will go steal some of those that didn't really need to be there. Tree it up. Ooh. Of course, that meant I had to adjust the things that I had set up to have a second tree around. But hey, it works. Okay. This is not an ideal place to put these mushrooms, but I just wanted to include them. And I was looking for something I needed to block off this side. So, trying to figure out what can I use out of the big boulders. So I decided just to put the ugly wall. Just good thing I have the mushrooms there. They kind of hide the fact that that wall is so ugly.